So this is pictures inside Air Force One and tells information about it. How fast and how high? Air Force One can fly over 700 miles per hour. That's really fast. It can also fly higher than most commercial planes at a height of 45,000 feet. That's 10,000 feet higher than the normal cruising altitude of any other passenger airliner. Despite its crazy speed, Air Force One flies very smoothly. Air Force One never has to touch the ground. This is probably one of the coolest facts about Air Force One. Air Force One can refuel in the sky. It never has to touch the ground. If it wanted to, it could fly forever. It could keep the president in the sky as long as it has to. Another cool fact, Air Force One has a 3,000-gallon fuel tank. Air Force One has 2 restaurants on board. There are essentially 2 restaurants aboard Air Force One. Well, they're 2 massive kitchens that always have food available. The president and his guests can have anything they desire. Air Force One is staffed with top-rated chefs, and each kitchen holds up to 100 people. That's pretty big. Phones are everywhere. Air Force One has over 85 phones, but why? Well, it's the most secure place the president can talk, even over the White House. The airborne executive phone has a light on the back that lights up red when secure. There are dozens of less secure lines aboard for the press and staff that travel with the president. There are super spy cameras in the wheel wells. In 1959, President Eisenhower instructed Allen Dulles, the director of Central Intelligence at the time, to install cameras in the wheel wells of Air Force One. These cameras were so powerful that even in 1959, they could read license plates from the sky. No matter the reason for the installation, you can't deny how unbelievable that is. It has continued to be believed by aviation experts that updated sky-to-ground camera tech continues to be in use in various locations on the underbelly of the aircraft, including the wheel wells. Air Force One is large enough to be a house. Air Force One is large enough to be a house. It has 3 stories of 4,000 square feet. The president has his own large office, lavatory, and a conference room. There are private quarters for special guests, and all the furniture is exquisite, like it belongs in some exotic mansion. How much does Air Force One cost to fly? The Air Force One costs $206,000 an hour to operate. That's staggering compared to the $20,000 an hour it costs for a commercial airline. President Trump's traveling costs were $10 million his first month in office. Presidential travel involves hundreds of people and dozens of aircraft. The costs add up. Air Force One is where Homeland Security was birthed. President George W. Bush signed the Department of Homeland Security into existence from on board a flight on the Air Force One. It was thousands of feet above Germany that this decision was made immediately following the attacks of September 11th. The decision has changed the inner workings of our country forever. Air Force One is pretty much a nuclear-resistant Oval Office. The plane can withstand a nuclear blast even if on the ground. It has been put through testing to the equivalent of a nuclear attack. That's comforting for sure. Let's hope it's never tried in real time. Air Force One is an airborne command center. The gear aboard Air Force One is top-notch with superb satellite communications networks and extremely classified defensive measures that not only protect the plane during an attack but can carry out attacks as well. Most of us will never know the commands that have been made on Air Force One. Air Force One is actually Air Force Three. There are 2 Air Force Ones, but only one is the real deal. They fly together so no one knows which one the president is actually on. The Gulfstream, known as the C-20C, is a jet that supposedly trails the other 2 planes, but the government and the Air Force deny it exists. Interesting. President Trump's private 757 versus Air Force One. The Trump Force One is a 757 bought from Microsoft's Paul Allen. It's lined in gold plating and covered in the Trump family crest. It's bigger than Air Force One, President Trump bragged to the press. With Rolls-Royce engines and seating for 43, it was featured on the Discovery Channel as the world's most luxurious jetliner. Well, when it comes to the protection of the sitting POTUS, President of the United States, nothing is left to chance. For this reason, Air Force One has its own protection of a sort in the form of a doomsday plane called Signal E-4B. Basically, this plane has Air Force One's back. The plane is designed to stay in the air for days and is able to outrun the explosion of a nuclear weapon. The only function of this aircraft is the protection of Air Force One and the POTUS should its unique form of service is required. The 747 follows the POTUS aircraft everywhere it goes with the sole purpose of a specialized type of security. TVs abound. Believe it or not, Air Force One has 20 TVs on board. Each TV is strategically placed throughout the aircraft so that at any given time passengers will be able to view one. Although it has never been officially said why so many, there are two reasons that this may be. One would be that with Air Force One being such a massive structure, it would only hold that it would require more TVs than most aircraft. Second, with press and staff constantly flying with the POTUS, one would assume that they would need to keep up to date on broadcast and reports. It would only make their jobs that much less stressful. Plus, we are sure that the multitude of TVs is sure to provide a variety of viewing choices during long and tedious flights. The Beast. The presidential limo, nicknamed the Beast, goes everywhere the president goes without exception. The reason for this is that the Secret Service will better able to maintain the safety of the POTUS during vehicular transport. When the POTUS arrives, the limo is there waiting for him when he lands at his destination to carry him to wherever he needs. However, the limo, a Cadillac, does not actually travel with the president. In actuality, it is sent ahead of the president, transported aboard a military cargo plane. Since it is ahead of the president, the limo can be waiting and ready on the tarmac when the president arrives. Assigned seating. Much like a classroom, the seating on Air Force One is not only limited, but it is also very much assigned. The assigned seating rule is nothing new, as each administration has had its own rules on who can and cannot sit where. The reasoning for this is not really known, but it is something that every sitting president that has had Air Force One has participated in. The seating on Air Force One, which makes up over half of what is available, is reserved for mostly the press pool passengers as well as the Secret Service. There is a seat for everyone, and everyone has a specific seat.